Welcome to our Friday live stream, coming to you from the Huckabee Theater in Nashville, technically Hendersonville, but part of the greater Nashville area, where we'll be taping our television show this weekend that I'm sure you're going to be watching. As always, Pam Case joins me. She is right here. She's going to be reading the questions that you send in. We want you to start doing that like right now. Send your questions in a chat. If you want more visibility, send a super chat. We've got moderators who are watching the chat for questions. They'll send them to Pam. Pam will tell me. I'll answer them to you. If I don't like them, I'll pretend that I didn't hear what she said. That's how this works. We're going to talk a lot about what's going on with Hunter Biden. You think something maybe? Also, Kevin McCarthy considering an impeachment inquiry into Joe Biden. And good old Adam Schiff reacts to the whole thing. And Joe Biden claims to have cured cancer. I know you don't believe that he really did that, but we'll show you the video and you can see it for yourself. Well, we try to do a pre-show poll each Friday and kind of see what is on your mind and what you're thinking. We do that while people are waiting for the live stream to start. Pam, do we have a pre-show poll today?
Oh, and it's a good one.
Oh, good.
Oh, I think you're going to like this one. In your opinion, what's more likely to happen? And we had almost 500 folks before we started today participate. So what's more likely to happen? Kamala becoming president? Joe Biden arrested for corruption? Mike Huckabee running for president? Bernie Sanders becomes a capitalist?
Wow.
All right, so, okay.
The lowest of that would probably be me running for president. The next lowest, Bernie Sanders. The next would be Kamala. And then the big one is Joe.
Okay.
What do you
Flip-flop at the lower ones.
Okay.
So Joe Biden arrested for corruption. 37% of those participating today said, yeah, that's what's going to happen. 28% Kamala becomes president. And then Mike Huckabee runs for president. 21%. So you had, you know, at least a fifth saying, hey.
Ain't happening, people. Ain't
Bernie Sanders becoming a capitalist. 14%, but that's the poll today, and so had a little fun with everybody.
Yeah, that's kind of a good question. That's a fun one.
Hey, you got 20% out there thinking that you're going to be doing it, maybe.
Well, hey, 21%, totally wrong. Totally wrong. Our top comment from last week's live stream comes from Carla Chapman. She said, I quote, "I don't understand why the Bidens, Clintons, and Obamas are not in prison. We all need to pray for President Trump and his family." I certainly agree with that. I think as long as we have the kind of dual justice system we have, don't worry about any of those things happening, except today on this live stream, we're going to tell you that things are turning. And this week was a huge, huge turning point. I'll explain why a little later. Now, here's my question for you this week. Do you think the ongoing indictments of Donald Trump are prosecutions or persecutions? Do you think the ongoing indictments, are they prosecutions or persecutions? Leave us your answers in the chat or in the comment section below. We'd love to hear from you. If you were sleeping under a rock, or maybe you were somewhere in a far, far away land being abducted by UFOs, you may not have realized the biggest news story of the week, whether the press covered it adequately or not, was that Hunter Biden's plea deal, which was supposed to be a perfunctory walk into the Delaware federal courthouse, have a judge just say, yep, you guys have agreed to this, the defense, the prosecutors, sign the papers, let's go home. Hunter has no more legal responsibilities whatsoever. Can't be prosecuted for any crimes, past, present, or future, and he gets 2 misdemeanors and pays back a small portion of what he owes in taxes from all the money that he has made and or taken. Well, that's not what happened. The judge, to her credit, looked at the deal and said, not in my courtroom, we're not doing this. And I really appreciated the fact that here is a judge who has sent people to prison for 10, 20 years for doing less than what Hunter had done. But the prosecutor wiped all that away and basically said, listen, some called it a slap on the wrist. I disagree with that notion, slap on the wrist. This was more like a wet kiss to the face. This was an egregious kind of injustice. And I'm thinking about all those people who went to prison for evading far less taxes than Hunter Biden, who didn't have a gun as a drug user, which is an instant felony. And they're in the pokey right now, and they're going to be there for 10 or 20 years. And he gets to have a full-scale security detail, full of Secret Service, and a 6-car motorcade to show up to the courthouse. I mean, the whole thing was just outrageous. This judge said nope, and the whole thing got torn up, and then it blew up. So now the defense and the prosecutors are at loggerheads, and the judge basically said, you are not going to throw out all these crimes just because you thought you had a deal. And game on. That's really what it comes down to.
Yeah.
So
it's going to be interesting.
It's going to be very fascinating. Devin Archer, who is one of the former business partners of Hunter Biden, is going to be testifying under oath in Congress next week, starting on Monday. That could be an explosive day, to be sure. So anyway, a big, big turn of events. Now, here's what I think is the biggest turn of events. The mainstream media, which has utterly ignored all of these stories about the Biden crime family, have not been able to completely ignore this. They just can't. And what may be happening is that now they are forced to begin asking, what was in that plea deal? Why didn't it go through? And what is it that we have been missing all this time? We saw a little inkling of that in the White House press room when some of the reporters were quizzing Karine Jean-Pierre. She, of course, gave her non-answer. We have some of those later. But keep your eyes peeled to what's going on. It's going to be pretty interesting. Yes, it is. Weeks. One of the things that has been proven to be absolutely 100% untrue is Joe Biden's repeated claims that he not only didn't know anything about his son's business dealings, but that he never discussed any of them with his son, with his brother. I mean, it's like, I see nothing, I hear nothing, I know nothing. Watch this.
How many times have you ever spoken to your son about his overseas business dealings?
I've never spoken to my son about his overseas business dealings. I have never discussed with my son or my brother or anyone else anything having to do with their businesses, period. And what I will do is the same thing we did in our administration. There will be an absolute wall between personal and private and the government.
Do you stand by your statement that you did not discuss any of your son's overseas business dealings?
Yes, I stand by that statement.
You stand by all you want to, Joe, but you're going to be standing by something that just continually is proven to be an outright lie. He said the same thing on the debate stage with Donald Trump back in 2020 and was very adamant about it. Interestingly, there were several things that came out of that debate where Joe Biden made comments like that. Turned out Trump at the time looked like a bully, like he was just throwing this stuff out there. Everything he said was true. Everything Joe Biden said was not. Now, Karine Jean-Pierre, the White House press secretary, a job that would be very difficult in this White House, was asked, did Hunter Biden and Joe Biden receive favorable treatment from the Justice Department? Her answer is classic.
You state categorically that the administration has neither sought nor received favorable treatment from the DOJ for any investigation into the president, members of the administration, his family, or former President Donald Trump.
Absolutely not. The Department of Justice is independent. The president respects the rule of law. He has been saying that since he was before president, and that will remain the case.
Oh, yeah, totally independent. Respects the rule of law, not involved in any way. And boy, oh boy, that statement will not age well. Trust me on this. I thought this was a fascinating question in the press room. One of the reporters asked, would it be possible that President Biden would pardon his son? Watch.
Okay. Hey, let me go back to the first question of the briefing. I know you said not a lot's changed since yesterday and that it's a personal matter, but from a presidential perspective, is there any possibility that the president would end up pardoning his son?
No.
Not only did she say no, she quickly turned and go into another question because she doesn't want to touch that. Look, it was kind of an interesting way the reporter framed the question because she's obviously stonewalling on every front, but he tried to sort of lead her into the question, but she just says, no, keep turning, go somewhere else. Now, another scandal is that Hunter Biden got $2 million from a sugar brother out in California who paid off some of his debts and his taxes that he owed. This is a guy who is an attorney, was famously photographed a week or so ago smoking a big old bong on his balcony in L.A. in plain view of the world. That's a real kind of guy Hunter ought to be hanging out with right now. But Hunter also has made money not only from the Sugar Brothers, but also from people who are buying his paintings. Now, Hunter, who has never had any art training, has become quite the painter, selling paintings for as much as $800,000 a piece. He paints by blowing paint through a straw. He's had a little practice using a straw in some various ways, I'm sure. But here's the thing that's fascinating. He is selling these paintings, and at first, Hunter and his family said, look, these are paintings that we don't know who's buying them. We have no connection to them. They're being bought anonymously. Turns out that's a big old lie. And here's Karine Jean-Pierre trying to cover for that.
Elizabeth Naftali, she's made more than a dozen visits here to the White House and met with some of the president's most senior advisors. Can you tell us a little bit more about those visits, why she was here?
I would have to look into that. I've not been tracking these visits that you're mentioning to me.
Oh, yeah, I hadn't been tracking. I'm going to look into that. I wish I had her number. I'd just call and say, hey, how's that going?
I just hope somebody asks that same question every single day. Every day. Every day
ask that question. Because here's a person who paid $800,000 for one of Hunter's wonderful paintings because he's so skilled. And then, what do you know? She got appointed to a presidential commission. I'm sure it was totally coincidental, but nice going. If you have $800,000 you don't need, I would say buy a painting. Nope, send it to me. I'll paint you something. I'm sure it'll be just as dynamic as anything Hunter has made. So where does this lead? Does it go to an impeachment? I don't know. Kevin McCarthy says the House will probably start impeachment inquiry. And there's a difference. Here's what he said.
Now find information that 16 out of 17 payments from Romania were provided to the Biden shell companies while he was vice president. We now have some of the most credible whistleblowers. These 10-year IRS agents who have come forward said that the Biden family has been treated differently. Hannity, this is rising to the level of impeachment inquiry, which provides Congress the strongest power to get the rest of the knowledge and information needed.
So it's very important to distinguish between an impeachment inquiry, which is a process, and an impeachment, which is an act. Kevin McCarthy, I've said this on several television shows this week, I think is being very smart in not rushing to putting out articles of impeachment. And I would say to him and to some of the more hot-headed members of the House who want to write up those articles of impeachment and get right after it, don't do it. Don't. That's the easy direction, and it's disastrous in its results. And let me explain why. If the Republicans were to draft articles of impeachment right now, there is going to be a massive reaction, not only from the general public, but also monolithically from the press and the Democrats in Congress. And they will say, oh, this is just tit for tat. We impeached Trump. Now you're going to impeach Biden. Here's what they should do. Follow McCarthy's lead. Do the inquiry. Get the facts. Let them be dribbled out day by day by day in congressional hearings. Was there a $5 million bribe paid to Hunter and another $5 paid to Joe from the Communist Chinese? We think that happened. Let's get it proven. Let's find out whether Joe pressured the Ukrainian government to fire Shokin, who was the prosecutor, in exchange for the $1 billion of aid. Now, that's not hard to find. Joe Biden bragged about it on television. But let's get that confirmed. Let's go through all of these things, and as it dribbles out, it becomes impossible for the press to ignore it. And quite frankly, it's going to become too uncomfortable for some fair-minded Democrats. There aren't many, but there are a few who will look at this and say, I can't defend this. I just can't. And then what will happen is what happened in the 70s in Watergate, where you have people of the party of the president saying, enough is enough. Some Republicans finally said about Richard Nixon, we can't keep supporting him as president. He needs to resign or get impeached. And he eventually did. It does not happen immediately, and you have to have incontrovertible evidence to base it on. So I am urging Republican members of the House, don't rush to impeachment. There's plenty of time. Let this play out and let the American public, the media, and the other members of Congress catch up to the facts, and the outcome will be much better. Of course, Adam Schiff, Mr. G, let's impeach Trump for any and everything we can. He had such a brilliant observation in all this.
I think the Republican desire to impeach someone, anyone, no matter whether there's any evidence, just shows how they have descended into chaos.
Other than Steve Cohen, the Democrat from Memphis, Adam Schiff may be the single most disgusting person in Congress. And here he was, Mr. I have evidence that he never had, never presented. He lied through his teeth. And now he's saying, oh, these Republicans, they just want to rush into an impeachment, which he did twice.
Yes.
Twice. What a guy. But he has at least one fan, Nancy Pelosi, who just thinks he's wonderful.
Let me applaud you, Adam Schiff, whose name is synonymous with courage, with patriotism, with restoring the faith of the American people in our government.
That's hard to watch. Yeah, patriotism, courage. Those are not words I would attach to Adam Schiff, that's for sure. All right, let's get to some questions because I know we've got a few.
We do. And tied to the subject we've been speaking about here, can Biden and Harris be impeached and removed at the same time?
They cannot be. I mean, you would still have to file separate articles of impeachment for each individual. You can't do it wholesale. It could be done, but I don't think that would make a lot of sense because then you would have to, you can't just say, okay, you know, we're going to put two people. I don't think you have co-defendants in that sense. So it would have to be done separately.
Okay. Nisaz Notes is asking today, Governor, I know you're a believer. What scripture comes to mind about these current events?
Greater is he that is in us than he that is in the world. That would be the first one that comes to mind because the only comfort I have, the only hope I have is that God is still on his throne. He looks down and he does hear the prayers of his people. There just aren't enough of them. So we should send a few more up that he would intervene.
Thanks, Gov. Cy Smith 23 is asking today, Gov, how about a Huckabee ticket? What about that?
I'm assuming we're talking my daughter and me. I don't detect there which one would be.
Which Huckabee you
Yeah, there you go. I think, first of all, Sarah is too much enjoying and really just getting into the depths of being governor. She would probably have zero interest in it. And I have zero interest. Not that I didn't before, but, you know, I know when my time is up. And I'm not going to be stupid enough to go out there and stick my face in the blades of a fan that's running full speed for the third time. So there.
So there. All right, I got to remind everybody, too, a great time to subscribe. Make sure you hit that notification bell. Many, many reasons why we ask you to subscribe, and it's because we want the algorithm to work our way so people will understand and hear from us, because otherwise, YouTube plays a little game with us, I think, sometimes.
Yeah, they do.
So anyway, if you do that, you will be notified every single time we are right here on this set with a live stream. All right, just a little friendly reminder. Vivian Allen asking, you think with Biden being on the defense, that gets Democratic attention away from Trump?
No. They're totally focused on trying to get rid of Trump. This is all about election interfering. This is not because they honestly believe that there's some papers at Mar-a-Lago that would change the world and that Donald Trump was selling them off like cotton candy to the Chinese. if there's any concern about who's colluding with the Chinese or the Russians, it's Joe Biden. He's the only one that's made money by making deals with them through his son. And that's where the focus ought to be. But they're going after Trump now, saying that he tried to pressure some of his workers to erase surveillance tapes at his own home. Did you get that? At his own home. This is nonsense. But people are not stupid. And they constantly see this stuff, and it's why every charge level against Trump, his numbers go up. Because people that weren't even going to support him look at this and say, my gosh, are you kidding? Hillary Clinton erases 33,000 emails that she should never have had. She did not have the authority of a president because she was never the president. She had a server in her bathroom in her private home in Chappaqua, New York. Some of her high-level classified emails ended up on the laptop of Anthony Weiner, convicted felon for sex crimes. He's on the sex register. That's not a crime. That's fine. Don't worry about it. She bleach bit, took a hammer to some hard drives, all sorts of stuff. Not a problem. Donald Trump had some boxes of stuff that he did have a right to take, and they could have negotiated if they thought there was some things he should send to the National Archives. But that is not a decision of the archives. It's a decision of the president. And that's what they're charging him with. It's insane.
Joe Woodrum asking this afternoon, Governor, your thoughts on age limits for taking elected office?
Boy, that's come up this week in large measure because we've already seen Joe Biden stumble up and down stairs, fall off stages, have to be led, can't read the prompter, can't pronounce names of his own staff. This week we also saw, to be fair, Republican Mitch McConnell freeze in the middle of a press conference. He was talking, and all of a sudden he just stopped for 15 seconds. I finally had to escort him away. He's 81 years old. 90-year-old Dianne Feinstein of California started making a speech when all she was supposed to do was vote. Finally, someone whispered to her, just say aye. So she said, aye. Had no idea where she was. So we've seen some pretty stark things. I don't know that I would say an age limit per se. My gosh, Chuck Grassley is close to 90. The man does push-ups every day, works on his farm, is in fine mental and physical health. But maybe there should be an age, but probably even more than that, there should be some type of cognitive skill test that a person has to pass, sort of like a pilot has to pass a medical exam, prove that he's physically fit to fly. But interestingly, airlines force pilots to retire at age 65, no matter what kind of shape they're in. So maybe so. I'm not opposed to it.
Greetings today from Belgium. How about this, John from Belgium? None of this gets in the news here in Europe, he tells us. Biden is still presented as the most charming guy on the planet. Any ideas on how this is possible?
Because the press is in his corner. And by the way, you have a beautiful country, and the best chocolate in the world is Belgian chocolate. Better than, and I hate, boy, get in trouble with the Dutch, but it's better than the Dutch chocolate. Wow. Yeah, it is. Been to both, had both. Belgian chocolate doesn't get better. So there, thank you. It has nothing to do with your question, but I thought I'd toss you a little compliment to your country.
Catherine Holt writing today, do you think that Michelle Obama will be running for president?
A lot of speculation about that, and I think she would be a very formidable candidate for the Democrats should she decide to do it. I cannot imagine that she would, because she's not a happy camper when it comes to all the political stuff. I could be wrong, but I don't expect that to happen. So,
Jackie Stone asking, isn't the Biden administration over the impeachment? I'm just wondering if all of this is pointless.
No, it isn't pointless. Please don't think that. It's really just getting started. And I go back to what I said earlier. What McCarthy is talking about is an impeachment inquiry, not an impeachment. It's a big difference. This is simply using the power of the House. And once it gets to the level of an inquiry, they have certain tools that they can push for information that they can't if they're just doing a hearing. So that's why he's coming to that threshold. But he's not saying, yep, we're going to write up articles of impeachment, because that would be premature. Pam has mentioned to you, let me reiterate, if you have not subscribed to the channel, why don't you do it right this very minute? Hit that notification bell. Be sure to like the program, the live stream, and share it with people. Let them know that we are live and answering questions. I want to go to a video. This is one of Biden's advisors, Jared Bernstein, and he is being asked about gasoline prices, which have been dramatically up since Joe Biden took office. Now, why? Because Joe Biden declared war on fossil fuels. That's what happens. But his advisor tries so hard to defend these high prices. It does not go well. Watch.
You could get 5.5 gallons of gas for an hour of work for a middle wage worker. So you pull up to the pump, it takes you an hour of work to get 5.5 gallons. Now you get 8 gallons for that hour of work, okay? So that's a 40+% improvement.
Okay, and but let's talk about where we started, because when he took office, it was $2.39 a gallon. Now it's about $3.60 a gallon. So we're still, in less than 2 years, in a worse place.
So it depends on, yes, it depends. I mean, it depends on what your benchmark is.
Depends on what your benchmark. Well, your benchmark, my friend, is how much was gas when Joe Biden took office and how much is it now? By the way, it did double at one point of his presidency. It's down a little bit from its all-time high, but we're still more than $1 higher than it was under Donald Trump. We had the lowest energy prices, but more importantly, for the first time in 75 years, we were energy independent. And Joe Biden took us away from that pretty quickly. He also had, Joe Biden did this week, a major announcement. This is stunning. He cured cancer.
If you could do anything at all, Joe, what would you do? I said I'd cure cancer. They looked at me like, why cancer? Because no one thinks we can. That's why, and we can. We ended cancer as we know it.
We ended cancer as we know it. That's a pretty audacious statement. I have a feeling that all the people at MD Anderson and the Cleveland Clinic and cancer treatment centers all across America are scratching their heads and saying, why are we still here? We ended cancer as we know it. Well, as we know it, it's still around. And it's threatening many families, not only with their health, but robbing them of every last penny trying to get treatment. So Joe might want to be careful before he announces that he has ended cancer as we know it. He also doesn't seem to know how many people really died from the pandemic. I don't know if he just couldn't read the card right, but he was off just a little bit.
We're still feeling the profound loss of the pandemic. As I mentioned, of over 100 people dead.
Just 100? That's it? 100? I almost personally know 100 people who've died from COVID. Yeah. And he's like, that's the total number. I don't understand how people don't understand that that's not right when he's saying it. Stacey Plaskett of the Virgin Islands was the ranking member of the minority in the House, Democrat, and there was a hearing about censorship. And this is just amazing because she basically says censorship is a wonderful thing.
Well, you know, first of all, they want to talk about censorship. That anytime you point out untruths, you're censoring. You're stopping people from speaking. It's not that we're not stopping people from speaking. People can speak. But we're also going to give the American people the truth so that they can have science and facts and history against wild, outlandish claims that the Republicans are trying to get.
What's so crazy about what she just said is that who gets to be the decider of what's truth and what's science? Is it Anthony Fauci who told us not to wear masks because they'd kill us? And then, oh, no, wear 3 masks. It's even better. I mean, who makes that decision? Does Congresswoman Plaskett make that decision? Not on your life. That's just insane. Yeah. And these folks want censorship. They want the government to decide. Look, folks, the First Amendment's pretty clear. You are free to say stupid things. You're free to say wrong things. That's part of the whole genius of the First Amendment. And if you say something that's stupid or untrue, it's not that we tell you you can't say it. It's that somebody else can come along and refute it with better statements. That's how free speech works. You don't shut it down because, well, I don't like what they said. I don't agree with what they said. Let's shut it down, censor it. No, let them say it. And then you get to the microphone and you tell us a different point of view. That's what free speech is. We are almost out of time, aren't we?
We are, but we've got to bring up our question of the day. Well over 700 voting this afternoon. Do you think the ongoing indictments of Donald Trump are prosecutions or persecutions? And not surprising at all, persecutions, 93%.
93%?
Yes, sir.
Wow.
And, yeah, absolutely. So thank you for everybody participating today.
Well, it's been great having you with us. You can still leave your questions in the comments section, and we urge you to subscribe, hit the like button, click the notification bell, and do remember, Live with Mike streams every Friday unless we tell you otherwise, and we will tell you. That's one of the reasons that you should subscribe and hit the notification bell.